The Dallas Mavericks get smacked, absolutely smacked up in Denver on a second night of a back-to-back. Coming up next, I'll tell you why Dwight Powell is the best starter on the Mavs and Jason Kidd is setting up his Coach of the Year resume. Coming up next.
Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome to Locked On Mavs. This is one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris. I'm a writer and contributor at Mavs.com. I'm obviously riding solo today because, you know what? It's the weekend. Nick is traveling, and Nick is making me do a pod on a night like tonight. Now, he's not making me. We agreed that we're going to do a post-game pod after every game this season, even the weekend games that there's blowouts. And this is a night that I'd already committed to. And I'm like, what the heck? I thought about that whole commitment every time during this game. What a game. What a sucky game for the Mavs. Second night of a back-to-back in Denver. I was obviously joking in the opener of this pod about Dwight Powell being the best starter and Jason Kidd's Coach of the Year resume, but Dallas loses 106-75. Not good. Not good. So you're just going to hang out with me today. It's going to be a shorter pod, probably around the 20-minute mark. And what I'm going to do, actually, instead of going through, I have a bunch of notes from this game. Instead of just throwing random notes at you, I actually took some screenshots of some people's tweets that I follow on Twitter. And it's going to provide some talking points for the entire game. So we're 5 games into the season, and I don't know really what to take away from this team as far as like it was a joke on yesterday's pod of saying, man, like 4 games into the season, what have we learned from this, this team and this coaching staff and everything? And I don't really know. And it's one of the weirdest starts to a season. If you don't think this is a weird start, I don't know what to tell you, but it's just a weird start. It's like they have a winning record. They just won 3 games in a row. Now they're 3-2. And it's like, okay, you still have a winning record, but even in the wins, it looked clunky. And there's so many different angles. So I think the best thing to do is just to start with some of these tweets of what will happen if you're not watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, I'll put the tweets up on the screen. The system's weird. It's just going to put it over my face. Honestly, this tweet looks better than my face. But then, obviously for the audio podcast, I'll read the tweet and who it's from, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, all right, let's throw a first one up there. This one's from at Woolzay. He replied to one of my tweets. He says, I'll say this, Frank is a steal, and Maxi is the versatile big every team wants. Now, listen, I tweeted out towards the end of the game. I said, hey, for what it's worth, Frank's confidence that he's played with, this season, super impressive to me. Like, this dude was signed. I'm going to get to the overarching storylines of this game, but this is just the first tweet I threw out there. But Frank came in as this undrafted. He was a high draft pick as this unproven guy to the team, signs a minimum contract on the super cheap deal, makes the final team. There was this whole debate, him, Tyrell Terry, Trey Burke, is he even going to make the roster, Frank, and all this stuff. He makes the roster, and now he's put Josh Green, who was the 18th overall pick just a few years ago. He's basically not even in the rotation, which Josh Green played tonight. I guess he played 16 minutes. We can just forget that he played 15, or 10, 16 minutes in this game, because I don't see a lot of progression in Josh Green's game. I'm trying to be the nicest I can be in that, but we'll leave it at that. But I really do like Frank's confidence, especially coming off the bench. It looks like he's at least has some type of role coming off the bench. And Maxi, the whole thing with Maxi is, yes, he is the versatile big man that every team across the league would love to have on their team. And I will stand for Maxi. Maxi in the supplementary role on this team, sign me up. He is great in that role. we've said since day one, it's the top talent on the roster outside of Luka. That's been one of the issues on the team. And let's pull up the next one. Mike Peaslee. Shout out to Mike. Thankful that Mike is back on the radio talking Mavs and everything. I love seeing that news over the offseason. But he says the Mavs at Peas Radio tweets out during the game, the Mavs have now trailed by at least 20 points in 3 of their first 5 games this season. They've trailed by 20 points in 3 of the first 5 games this season. Okay, so I was trying to, when I was taking notes during the game, I wrote down this line because I was just, my mind was in so many different spots. I was very, very frustrated. And it's a different type of frustration. And I was DMing with somebody during the game and I was like, it's different this year because there's expectations. It's like we went through the Dennis Smith Jr. years, the pre-Luka years. I'm just talking about recent, towards the end of Dirk's career. Even when we got Luka, we didn't really have the high expectations, right? It's like, oh, Luka's, super young. It's rookie season. It's like now we're into that. There are expectations now. Like there were in the offseason, national people like Zach Lowe and these guys, like, oh, Dallas is our sneaky team this season for the finals and all this. And, we got people like myself that's like buying into it. It's like, oh man, top 4 team, they'd be top 3 team. And a lot of people throwing Dallas out there in that range. And it's like, now there's expectation. So it brings a different frustration. So when you see, and I wrote this down, I said, it's given me like first time head coach vibes for a young team, but this team isn't that. It's like, watching this team over these first 5 games, it gives you that sense of it seems like, it feels like, oh, it's a person's first time head coaching, gig on a team that it feels like it's the Magic, right? It feels like it's the, a team that's supposed to be bad and they're just tinkering with everything. It's like, hey, let's just try out everything. Let's try out 15 players, playing in the same night. Let's try out this, lineup or this bench unit. Like there was a moment tonight that we had a lineup of Willie, Maxi, Josh Green, Frank, and Brunson. This has to, this has to be a new lineup. We just talked about on yesterday's podcast, I think, about the number of 5-man lineups that has been thrown out for Dallas this year so far. Well, I'm pretty sure we can add this one to it. I don't think we've seen this on there's a lot of testing out of lineups and stuff right now. And it's like, hey, I get it, but we also have this generational talent in Luka that just it just changes those things where like I feel like we're watching all of this tinkering and experimenting with a brand new team but we're not that. Like we have expectations. This is kid's 3rd head coaching job. We have this generational talent in Luka. So that's where the fan base is right to be frustrated right now. And you watch these first 5 games and even though there's a winning record, like, dang, like this could be a very frustrating season. But okay, let's keep on going with some tweets here. Bob Sturm, great follow at Sports Sturm, says somebody tweeted at him and said, so when does Luka ask for a trade? And Bob quote tweets it and says he should probably consider starting his season first. Now, we're going to be honest. Open the door. Let's go to honest corner here. Luka just hasn't looked good. Like, we just have to say it, right? Like Luka doesn't look good physically. I've said it and trust me, I have made the jokes. I've made everything over the past few years of like, man, everybody just blows it up too much about Luka's weight or Luka's shape and like all this stuff. This is the first time at the beginning of this season, the first time that I'm saying, dang, like, yeah, he is out of shape right now. And it's like, you can tell it. You can tell it with his body. He talked about it post game. If I was great like Nick was, I would just I would push a little button right now and would play Luka's post game presser there. But Luka said after the game, he's like, hey, like he was asked about the summer and asked about I think it was Callie Kaplan, Dallas Morning News, that asked him about the long summer that he had with the Olympics. We talked to Franco about it before the season started, and his piece in D Magazine just about this summer that Luka didn't have a ton of off time because he was in the Olympics and training and all this stuff. And Luka kind of referenced it. He's like, yeah, I'm just, it was a long summer. He said, but it's not an excuse or anything, but I'm just trying to get myself into playing shape there. And he didn't say playing shape, but he's like, I'm still trying to get my paraphrasing Luka here, trying to get back, into it. And you can tell it. His shots sometimes are short. He is, he just, it doesn't look like normal Luka. But I'm going to take a step further. I don't like some of his body language either. Like, we're early into the season. We're 5 games into the season, and it feels like it's game 68. And I just don't, there's a weird vibe right now. And there's just something with Luka's body language I'm not a fan of. There was a play that Michael Porter Jr. got the ball and he took off on a fast break. You guys probably know this is in the first half. And Luka just kind of took a step or two and just stopped. Like he was kind of like on even, like he could have at least challenged that. And so it feels weird criticizing Luka. I get it. They're not looking clunky and everything because of just Luka in this, but it's not like Luka is in incredible shape right now. It's not like Luka is putting up these crazy numbers and he is, his body language is great and all this stuff, and the team is still looking clunky and losing. That he is playing, he does play a part in that. And I feel like we have to be at least a little bit honest about that. Let's take a quick break and then we'll get into some more talking points about this game. Cool. We're back. Andy Bailey says, or at Andrew Bailey says, the Mavericks were an offensive juggernaut over the course of 2 seasons prior to this one. A legitimate juggernaut that was entirely predictable and still unstoppable. I think that's where some of the frustration comes also, right? Like, we watch a game like this against Denver. We've watched these first, 5 games of the season here, and we're used to seeing what this offense is looking. Used to reading all the headlines and the tweets, 2 seasons ago of, man, Dallas, best offense in league history that ever happened before. Look at these numbers. This is crazy. It's like we go from that and Luka in that offense to watching this to where every single game so far this season, they haven't hit the 50-point mark at halftime. We just watched a game that Dallas lost by scoring 75 points by them starting the fourth quarter with 56 points. Like, it's such a stark difference. It's such a 180 from what we've seen over the past 2 seasons that it's wild. It's just weird to think about and to watch as a fan, as a media member, as anybody. And so if you're like, you know exactly how we all feel right now. So, okay, let's go to the next one. Jacob at D Wheeler says, bring Haralabob back. Genuinely think his statistical insight would be better used with a newer coaching staff that is clearly having offensive issues. Defense is better, sure, but it cost us on offense. Now, I've actively tried to stay off Twitter as much as I can some during games. It gets, and then I just have fun with it. Like after the game, I tweeted about Dwight Powell's plus minus just to have fun with. I love seeing people. I love sarcasm on Twitter. It's hard to pull off because then people just think you're serious. And I just love responses of like, oh, plus minus sucks. It's a horrible stat. It's like, okay, cool. That was kind of the point of the tweet. But, Mav State Media, hashtag Mav State Media. Let's go. But no, I was trying to say that I haven't seen many Mavs fans, to my knowledge, that have wanted Haralabob, that are calling for Haralabob to come back. But it's like, I've been kind of annoyed with some of his tweets, and I was shocked he didn't fire off some tweets and stuff tonight because it comes across as like the disgruntled ex-employee that he's just going to throw out, whenever the Mavs suck, he's going to kind of take his laps and be like, hey, cool. I did this, I did that. But he was here the past few seasons when the offense was great, and you can't deny that. However you want to take that. Adam's Corner made me crack up laughing when I was seeing this. He said, Harrison Barnes, talking about Sunday, Kings game coming up Sunday at home on Halloween season. Let's go. Bibbs Corner says, Harrison Barnes giving us 40, then holding a prayer circle for the team after the game. Shout out to HB season. Great season so far. And do the Kings come into Dallas and beat the Mavs? Possibly. Don't know. But that was just an incredible tweet because, yeah, Harrison HB is really big with his faith, and I just enjoyed everything about that tweet. All right, so at Squish 41 says this: it's a long season, things will improve. The same 3-year-old red flags still exist, and that's clear with or without the coaching change. Okay. Another point he said at Squish 41 says, Squish here, love Squish. Luka hasn't looked right. That'll change. That's correct. I said this a little bit ago. He hasn't looked right. And he halfway admitted that after the game too. And hopefully it does change. Squish also says Mavs got to make a move or it's the first round exit again. I agree. I think they have to make a move. I wanted them to make a bigger move over the offseason. But yeah, I think it is evident that they need to make some type of move at some point before the deadline. Squish said that's my most optimistic outlook. Thank you, Squish, for trying to be optimistic. And yeah, this was somebody tweeted at me and said, hey, you have a platform to influence change, Isaac. I hope you start losing it. I'm filling in the blanks because I made a meme out of it. But guys, I don't really have a lot of influence. This is breaking news. I don't really have influence with Cuban or kids, so I don't know who needs to hear that. But you know what? Cool. Thank you for thinking that I do. And then this one, this is from Tony Jones, I think of The Athletic. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Kirk retweeted him here, and I thought this was kind of telling a little bit. Somebody asked Tony, said, hey, what's wrong with Dallas? He says they play super slow and don't shoot enough threes with a roster designed to play faster and shoot a bunch of threes. Now, the only pushback I'll say to that is Dallas has shot a lot of threes, and but does the system fit the roster? No. I don't think so. I think we do need some more space and everything. But here's some takeaways from this game. Dwight Powell just hasn't been a good basketball player the first few games. Is that safe to say? Not really saying anything hot take-ish right there, but especially going against Jokic in this matchup, it was tough for him. And he did have the highest plus minus out of the starters, so can't take away anything from him with that. But defensively, they struggled. He was the lone big in there, and Willie came off the bench and played some. Brunson played well kind of early, but then it's just they didn't make shots. And Jason Kidd after the game was obviously talking about the game, and he's like, hey, it's a make or miss league type of thing. A lot of these answers we've heard before, like, hey, we liked a lot of our shots, we just missed our shots. And I think there's a little bit more to that, but they did just miss their shots. I mean, they shot 29% from the field tonight, not just on threes, 29% from the field, 21% from three, 8 of 37 from three tonight. But somebody asked him about 3-pointers and shooting percentage and assists because they had 14 assists tonight. Not the best. And Jason Kidd was like, hey, this is kind of, paraphrasing, he basically said it was like a miracle that they had 14 assists when they shot 29% from the field, but they didn't hit their shots. Luka had a bad game, 5 of 18, like I said. His free throw percentage, though, 5 of 5 from the field tonight. I actually have the season-long stats right up after the game here from Mavs PR. These are Luka's numbers after the first 5 games of the season. He's played obviously played and started 5 games. He's played 169 minutes over those 5 games. He's shooting 41% from the field. He's shooting 25% from 3, 9 of 35 from 3. His free throws, 17 of 22, 77% from the free throw line. He's averaging 22 points a game with 23 turnovers on the season. If you put money on Luka to win MVP before the season, you might be sweating it, but just hold on. If the price dips on that, if the odds go down on that, maybe this is the time. You need to be buying right now because you could capitalize on that in the future. But I don't know how much else I want to talk about this game. This game was really frustrating to me, as for a lot of you guys. Some of these players got in towards the end of the game. Eugene Amaruri played towards the end of the game, played 8 minutes, made his debut, scored 6 points. Super happy for him. Seems like an awesome kid. I texted Nick. Nick obviously wasn't covering this game tonight. I texted him and I said, hey, Amarui is one of the 2 players that is talking to media after the game, if that tells you anything about how the game went. So that is kind of more telling than anything on that. But Trey Burke played 15 minutes in this game, Frank, Maxi, Jalen off the bench. Frank, was a -2, and you're like, hey, it's still a minus, but Frank played 18 minutes and was still just a -2. Like that's by far the best plus minus of anybody on the team who played, over 15 minutes. But just wasn't a good night overall for anybody. It was bad. It was the second night of a back-to-back. Altitude in Denver. Let me put my Mavs State Media hat on. They look tired as a team. They just didn't work together. Luka looked bad, like we said, and now they just got to regroup, come back home, and as kids said after the game, they got to flush it. But they also have to talk about some things too about energy and effort and all of that. But this Kings team is fun, and I'll be really curious on how they face them on Sunday. And the biggest thing that I haven't talked about at all, Kristaps Porzingis didn't play in this game, and lower back tightness. Game 2. He's played 5 games this season. He has missed 2 of them, and we'll see where that situation goes, and we'll see if he's available and if he can play come Sunday. Guys, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. That was kind of a weird pod. Honestly, it's kind of weird too because this is solo pod on YouTube because I'm like just looking at myself when normally Nick's on here or somebody else, but anyway, we'll be back on Sunday night. And like and subscribe below on the YouTube channel. See you guys on Sunday.